Beneath the cerulean veil of the ocean, where sunbeams pierced like whispers of forgotten worlds, lived a young mermaid named Nyla. Her silver-blue tail shimmered like moonlight on water, yet her heart pulsed with questions too heavy for the current to carry. While other mermaids danced in coral gardens and sang to the tides, Nyla floated alone, drawn to the surface's golden glare. Every night, the same dream returned. A shoreline bathed in twilight, footsteps etched in sand, and a haunting melody carried by the wind. Why do I dream of a world I've never touched? Nyla whispered to the deep, as her amber eyes searched the unknown. The sea offered silence. Even the whales that roamed the trenches sensed her ache, their songs growing somber near her presence. She was not unhappy, only incomplete. And tonight, as twilight bled into the deep, the weight of her yearning threatened to drag her spirit into the abyss. The ocean pulsed with rhythm, but Nyla's heartbeat danced to another tune. She swam past groves of swaying kelp, brushing their leaves like pages of a story she couldn't read. Her thoughts spiraled, memories of dreams that were not her own. One image always returned, a small girl running toward crashing waves, laughing, then vanishing in the foam. Nyla didn't understand who the girl was, or why she felt connected to her. Am I remembering or imagining? She pondered aloud. A school of silverfish scattered at her voice. Ow. The sea, vast and ancient, kept its secrets well. Her home, though beautiful, was beginning to feel like a shell, polished on the outside, hollow within. The more she tried to belong, the more she felt apart. In the shadow of a sunken ship, she paused, staring at its decaying frame. Is this what happens to those who follow dreams? She wondered. Nyla's elder Mareia called her to the sacred Shellstone, a gathering place where stories were sung and tides remembered. Mareia said, "Child of the tide, why does silence echo louder in your song?" Nyla lowered her eyes, unable to answer. Mareia placed a hand over Nyla's heart. "The sea remembers who you were before this life," she said. "Dreams are not illusions, they are echoes." The revelation stunned Nyla. She had always believed her dreams were weakness, but now, they felt like threads of a deeper truth. The elder's touch filled her with warmth, yet fear clung like seaweed to her spirit. If her soul remembered another life, what did that mean for her now? She swam away with the question heavy in her chest, the shellstones humming quiet behind her. Night fell, and with it came the return of the dream. But this time, it was different. Nyla stood at the edge of the dream shore, but instead of watching, she walked. Each step was electric, like touching a truth buried too long. She felt wind, actual wind, and the sand beneath her feet. She looked up to see the stars blinking in human constellations. Then a voice echoed, "You were not always of the sea." The dream shattered. Nyla awoke with a gasp, surrounded by darkness and bioluminescent coral. Her chest heaved. The voice, the feeling, the clarity, it all seemed real. "I need to know who I was," she said, tears streaming silently into the sea. Somewhere, something had shifted. The tide of her destiny had begun to turn. The next morning, Nyla swam to the surface for the first time in weeks. The air met her like a forgotten lullaby, salty, cold, and alive. She gazed at the horizon where sea met sky and whispered, "Show me." A lone seagull circled overhead. On a distant cliff, a lighthouse flickered against the pale light of dawn. The sight ignited something in her chest, a longing not just to dream but to become. Below, the sea called her home, but above, the unknown beckoned. She hovered at the border between two worlds, suspended in decision. Am I betraying the sea, she thought, or answering a truth it placed inside me? Her heart beat louder than the waves. Nyla returned to the surface each dawn not to sing, but to observe. Hidden beneath kelp canopies or behind jagged rocks, she watched the human shoreline with silent hunger. One morning, she saw him, a young boy collecting driftwood with a gentle rhythm, humming the exact tune from her dreams. Her breath caught. It was not his form that startled her, but the connection that surged through her like a forgotten memory. He paused, glanced toward the sea, and Nyla's body froze. Did he sense her presence? She ducked beneath the tide, her heart thrashing. The boy's melody drifted through the air above like incense, intoxicating and sacred. How can he know that song? She whispered to the current. It wasn't love she felt. It was recognition. And recognition can be the most dangerous longing of all. That night, Nyla swam restless. The boy's face burned into her thoughts like a sunspot on the soul. She traced patterns in the sand below, lines that mirrored the rhythm of his tune. She couldn't shake it, the haunting harmony that seemed to bind her dream and waking world. In desperation, she returned to the Shellstone, placing her hand upon its surface. "What is this feeling?" she asked, her voice trembling. The stone shimmered faintly, but offered no answer. Instead, it reflected her image, eyes wide, filled with something dangerous. Hope. Hope for what? That he might see her? That her dreams meant something more than memory? She knew the ocean's rules. Curiosity, if followed too far, becomes obsession. But obsession, when touched by magic, becomes fate. Mareia sensed the storm rising within Nyla. The elder found her drifting near the sea vents, heat and bubbles swirling in eerie silence. "You've seen something," Mareia said. Nyla hesitated. "Someone," she corrected. Mareia's face darkened. "The surface carries illusions. Their songs aren't ours to echo." But Nyla's resolve flared. "Then why do they live in my dreams?" she demanded. Mareia's silence was answer enough. "Beware, child," she finally spoke. "Desire wears many faces. Some are your own." That night, Nyla felt the warmth of defiance. It burned against the cold truths of the sea. She wasn't ready to let go. Not of the song, not of the boy, not yet. For the first time, she questioned whether the ocean's truths were hers to accept. Nyla crept closer to the surface now, emboldened. She explored shipwrecks, gathered trinkets, a compass, a child's shoe, a broken locket with a tiny portrait inside. Human lives, frozen in ruin. But to her, they were relics, proof that the world above was not a dream but a history she could feel. She began to hum their songs, her voice blending with whale calls and currents. She didn't know the words, but the emotions came through, the ache, the joy, the fear. The ocean grew still when she sang. Even the dolphins listened. In those melodies, Nyla wasn't just a mermaid anymore. She was something else, something between. Her collection of found things formed a shrine in a sea cave, her altar to a world she barely knew. One evening, Nyla followed the boy's presence to a cliffside ledge where he sat alone, sketching the waves. Hidden behind a rock arch, she hovered near the surface, just low enough to remain unseen. He began to sing, a raw, unfinished tune that sent chills down her spine. His voice cracked, not from lack of skill, but from emotion. She felt it. The same loneliness, the same yearning. "You feel it too," she murmured. For a moment, she rose too high, and her silhouette broke the surface. The boy looked up, eyes narrowing toward the horizon. Nyla vanished, heart racing. Back beneath the waves she trembled, not from cold, but from a terrifying new truth. She was no longer watching his world. She was becoming part of it. Nyla finally broke the surface in daylight. Masked behind sea foam and a rock outcrop, she emerged farther down the beach where the tide curled with gentle ease. For the first time, she stood, her tail shimmering in the sunlight as it split into trembling legs. The transformation was raw, like muscle remembering how to ache. Her balance failed her, and she collapsed onto the sand, gasping. Each breath of air was foreign, sharp like thorns in her throat. She crawled forward, hand pressing into warm grains, eyes wide with wonder and fear. Her legs trembled violently under her weight. "This is what I wanted," she whispered. But her body was not ready. The cost of change was pain, and now she felt it in every bone. The sky above was endless. The shore was real, and she had never felt more vulnerable. A group of humans approached. Nyla scrambled back, panic overriding curiosity. Her legs betrayed her, weak, clumsy. She barely made it behind a boulder before they saw. A girl pointed. "Did you hear that splash?" A boy laughed. "Just a seal." They moved on, leaving Nyla trembling in the shadow. She peered out, studying them. They laughed, embraced, so casual in their skin. Her body, awkward and bruised, felt alien. The truth struck her like salt in a wound. She didn't belong here. Not yet. Maybe not ever. What she had imagined as liberation felt like exile. The humans' world didn't welcome her. They didn't see her. She wasn't magical here. She was invisible. She curled into herself, hiding from the very dream she once chased. That night, Nyla limped back into the ocean. The transformation reversed slowly. Legs fading into a tail, pain receding into numbness. But something had changed. The water no longer felt like home. It stung her skin, or perhaps her pride. She drifted in a hollow state, neither above nor below. Mareia found her near a reef. "You touched the sky," the elder said quietly. Nyla didn't answer. "And now you mourn it." Nyla's eyes were dull. "I thought I could be one of them," she said. "But they didn't see me." Mareia's face softened with ancient sorrow. "You saw them, child. That was enough. Truth rarely sees us back." Nyla turned away, not angry, just empty. Her dream hadn't died. It had simply turned its face, and she could no longer bear to look. In her solitude, Nyla began to question everything. Who was she, if not a daughter of the sea? If not a dreamer? Her shrine of trinkets lay scattered. She had thrown them in a rage, unable to bear their false promise. The locket, now cracked, sat alone on a stone. She stared at it, feeling its weight as if it were an anchor tied to her heart. "What am I chasing?" she murmured. The silence didn't soothe her this time. It mocked her. For the first time, Nyla envied the silence of shells, the way they held stories no one heard. She drifted through the caves with hollow eyes, tracing her fingers over old coral etchings. Her tail moved, but her spirit did not. She was alive, yes, but she was no longer becoming. In the deepest part of the ocean, where light could no longer follow, Nyla sank. Not physically, but spiritually. She went to the trench, the forbidden place where even whales feared to swim. Alone in that vast silence, she screamed, though no sound came. She pressed her forehead to the stone walls, hoping the earth would answer her in vibrations, in memory, in mercy. But it didn't. The darkness only mirrored her thoughts, deep, endless, consuming. And yet, in that blackness, a glimmer appeared. A jellyfish, tiny and pulsing with light, hovered near her face. It did not speak, but in its movement she saw grace. It did not belong above or below. It simply existed. And in that moment, Nyla understood belonging was never about place. It was about presence. The trench's silence broke, not with words but with memory. Nyla touched the ocean floor, her fingers brushing over a stone etched with unfamiliar symbols. Her vision blurred, not from pressure, but from something awakening. The stone pulsed with warmth, and images flashed, disjointed, luminous. A child running along a distant shore. A woman casting something precious into the sea. A storm. Nay, a shipwreck. Then herself, except not as she was now, but human. The realization struck like lightning through water. I have been here before. Her soul trembled as lifetime surfaced like bubbles from the deep. She wasn't imagining the land. She was remembering it. Her dreams were fragments of a forgotten self. I was one of them, she whispered. And the ocean, for once, did not argue. Nyla surfaced that night, the stars unblinking above her, the sky wide like a wound reopening. She floated in silence, arms outstretched, letting the tides carry her like a cradle. The stars felt familiar now, not mystical, but ancestral. Who was I? She whispered to the night. A single shooting star streaked across the sky. She closed her eyes. In that moment her body felt like a bridge, not just between land and sea, but between lifetimes. Her heart no longer ached with longing, but with awe. The sea had not stolen her humanity. It had preserved it. She was not cursed. She was chosen. The tide of her sorrow turned, replaced by a quiet reverence. Not everything broken is lost. Some things break so they can open. Mareia waited at the Shellstone, eyes closed, lips moving in silent prayer. Nyla swam toward her with something new in her gaze. Not defiance, not despair, but knowledge. "You remembered," Mareia said before Nyla even spoke. "The sea showed you." Nyla nodded. "I was a child once, a girl on the shore." Mareia opened her eyes. "You were born of both realms. You carry the longing of many lives." Nyla looked to the stone. "Why did I forget?" "Because remembering too soon burns the soul." Mareia's voice softened. "But now, you are ready." Nyla touched her own heart, tears blooming. She no longer hated her dream. It was not a weakness, it was a compass. Her sorrow was not the enemy, it was the path. In a dream that felt more memory than illusion, Nyla stood again on the shoreline, but this time she was fully human. A storm approached, wind tugging her hair, waves rising in threat. She clutched something, a glowing pearl. Behind her, a ship groaned in agony. She turned and hurled the pearl into the sea, then dove after it. The water swallowed her, and all faded to black. She awoke with tears. It wasn't just a vision, it was her death, her sacrifice. A past life undone by love and devotion. That pearl was her soul. The sea had taken her not to punish, but to preserve, to purify. Her return now was not to escape, but to heal what had been left behind. Her soul's cycle was coming full circle. When Nyla returned to the sea cave, she did not rebuild her shrine. Instead, she gathered each object, kissed it gently, and let it drift back to the currents. "Thank you," she whispered with each release. They were no longer treasures but teachers. Each fragment had led her to herself. She watched the locket float away last, light catching its broken face one final time before it vanished. Her tail shimmered as she turned to leave. She felt lighter, not because she had less, but because she carried only what mattered. Her past did not own her. It was part of her. The ocean no longer held her prisoner. It held her truth. And in surrendering to that truth, she found a strange kind of freedom. A peace born not of escape, but of embrace. Nyla swam to the abyssal mirror, a sacred rift in the ocean floor where no mermaid dared linger. The water grew colder, darker. Here silence was not absence but presence. "Legends," said the mirror, showed no reflection, only truth. As she approached, her heart thudded with dread. She peered into the rift, expecting her face. Instead, she saw all the versions of herself: child, human, mermaid, lost dreamer, floating in pieces like shattered glass. They wept. They reached for each other. They begged to be whole. Nyla trembled. "Who am I without these pieces?" The abyss did not answer. It only invited her forward. She hovered on the edge. If she entered, she would not return the same. "I am ready," she whispered, her voice barely more than breath. And she dove. Within the mirror, time dissolved. Nyla spun in a vortex of light and shadow. Memories collided, her human life, her death, her rebirth in the sea. Faces flashed. The boy on the beach, Mareia, her own mother's smile from a life she barely knew. The pain surged, not from the past, but from letting go. She screamed, but there was no sound, only ripples through the current. The ocean did not punish. It purged. And she, caught in its tide, felt her ego unravel like kelp torn in a storm. Her pride, her longing, her illusions, they all fell away. All that remained was stillness. Not the stillness of death, but of awakening. She no longer needed to be someone. She only needed to be. She emerged from the mirror slowly, not with triumph, but with reverence. Her tail shimmered like never before, an iridescent glow that pulsed with stillness. Mareia waited above, silent. Nyla approached her, eyes gentle, voice quiet. "I let it go," she said. Mareia placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then you are no longer bound." Nyla wept, not from sadness, but from the spaciousness now inside her. She was not defined by the dream or the shore, nor the sea. She had become something else. Whole. "You carry silence now," Mareia said. "Guard it well. It will guide you more than any map." And Nyla knew. Her journey was no longer to find herself, but to live from what she had found. That evening, Nyla returned to the cliffside waters one final time. The boy was there again, sketching. This time, she did not hide. She surfaced fully, her upper body emerging from the waves with grace. He turned and gasped. Their eyes met. For a breath, the world stopped. Then he smiled, not in wonder, not in fear, but in recognition. Nyla did not speak. She simply raised her hand in farewell. She did not need to be part of his world to honor what he had given her. He stood slowly and waved back. That was enough. She turned and sank beneath the surface, not in sorrow, but in peace. Some connections are not meant to last. They are meant to awaken. As the moon rose high, Nyla rested atop a kelp bed, her gaze turned upward to the stars. No longing stirred her now, only stillness. The ocean was no longer a boundary, nor was the land a promise. Both were simply places she had known. She breathed deeply, letting the silence stretch within her. Her heartbeat was slow, her spirit still. "I am," she whispered. No need to add more. A sea turtle glided past. Coral polyps swayed in quiet rhythm. The world kept moving, but she remained unmoved. Not in apathy, but in peace. The storm had passed. The dream had ended. And in its place, reality had bloomed. A reality of quiet joy, of simple being, presence, of freedom. Nyla swam through waters she had once known as prisons. Now, they felt like old songs, familiar, soft, and resonant. She visited the coral reefs where she used to hide, but this time she sang, not with longing, but with clarity. Her voice flowed like wind through chimes, soft yet powerful. Creatures gathered. Dolphins, seahorses, and even the shy ones who once fled from her presence. They did not just listen, they absorbed. Something in her song stirred their stillness. Nyla wasn't trying to be heard, she simply was. That was the difference. Where she once sought meaning, she now shared presence. She no longer needed to reach the shore, she had become the shore, still and offering. Mareia watched from a distance as Nyla spoke to a young mermaid, no older than she had been when her journey began. The child asked, "Do you ever dream of the land?" Nyla smiled gently. "I used to. Now I dream of peace." The girl tilted her head. "Is that better?" Nyla considered the question. "Peace isn't better. It's just quieter, and sometimes it whispers what truth cannot shout." The girl smiled, sensing something deeper behind the words. Mareia nodded with quiet pride. Nyla had become what the sea needed, a presence of balance. She was no longer pulled between worlds. She was the stillness that could meet either. And now she began planting seeds in others, seeds not of desire but of awakening. News spread across the sea. A surface storm was coming, fierce and fast. Nyla rose to help, not out of fear, but out of instinct. She swam with a pod of dolphins, guiding lost sea creatures into deeper waters. Fish scattered, currents surged, but her presence calmed them. Above, lightning licked the ocean's skin. Below, Nyla became an anchor. When a frightened turtle panicked near a reef wall, she embraced it gently, shielding it from the crashing debris. Her body moved like water, fluid, unresisting. She had once been the storm inside herself. Now, she was the still eye. In chaos, she no longer broke. She held. She served. she embodied. After the storm passed, the sea lay hushed. Debris drifted, but peace settled. Nyla swam to the surface where the first light of dawn kissed the horizon. She closed her eyes. Each breath felt like a hymn. A single gull flew overhead. The world had not changed, but she had. She no longer saw the sky as something above, or the sea as something below. They were not divided. She existed between them, whole and present. The boy's sketchbook came to mind, and she smiled. He showed me a mirror, she thought. Not of herself, but of her yearning. And now that yearning was gone. In its place was stillness, full and luminous. She no longer asked the world for answers. She had become the answer. Back in the Shellstone chamber, Nyla left behind something small, a single scale, now glowing faintly with iridescent light. It was a gesture, not of loss, but of presence. She looked around the chamber one last time. This was where she had once come for answers. Now, it was where she left understanding. As she turned to leave, Mareia stood waiting. No words passed between them. Only a bow, slow and sacred. Nyla swam upward through layers of light. She had no destination. She simply moved with ease, unburdened. The water flowed around her, not pushing nor pulling. And for the first time, Nyla realized she was no longer on a journey. She had arrived. The seasons shifted, and with them, the tides. Time no longer marked Nyla. It passed through her like current through kelp. One morning, she returned to the same reef where her journey had begun. It was unchanged, yet she saw it with new eyes. Each coral branch whispered stories she had missed before. A hermit crab scuttled past her, and she smiled. The world had never lacked magic. It had only required presence to see it. A young mermaid watched her from behind a coral ledge, curious and silent. Nyla didn't speak. She simply swam slowly, allowing the girl to follow or not. Her journey no longer needed a stage. Her being was her teaching. She moved like a poem, unspoken, but deeply understood. Above the waves, the world continued. Humans walked, built, dreamed, unaware of the quiet soul beneath them. But one morning, on the very beach where it all began, the boy, now older, returned. He no longer searched the horizon. He simply sat, sketching again. His drawings had changed. No longer fantasy, but reflection. One sketch showed a figure in water, serene and watching. He paused, looking at the sea. "Thank you," he whispered, though no one replied. And far below, Nyla paused, sensing something in the current. A warmth, a farewell, or perhaps a continuation. Some bonds don't end, they just stop needing names. She closed her eyes and let the moment pass, as all things do. Nyla swam through a kelp forest, illuminated by shafts of mid-morning light. Her touch no longer disturbed, everything responded in harmony. She glided past sea lions, sleeping on ledges, and schools of fish that opened for her like petals. A manta ray followed her for miles. Nothing chased her. Nothing clung. The world had accepted her presence, as she had accepted hers. Every movement was intentionless grace. Every moment, enough. A stingray passed beneath her belly, and she didn't flinch. She had nothing to fear, not because the sea had changed, but because she had. There was no separation between herself and what she touched. In losing everything, she had gained herself. Back at the Shellstone one final time, Nyla placed her palm upon the ancient surface. It no longer glowed, nor did it need to. She didn't come seeking. She came offering. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice was calm, no longer needing answers. Mareia appeared beside her, eyes gleaming. "You have returned," she said. Nyla nodded, "but not to stay." "Then you are ready." No ceremony followed. No farewell. Just breath. Nyla turned, swam upward once more, but this time not to escape or explore, only to move. Like the tide always arriving, never clinging. The Shellstone faded behind her, but its memory remained, not as something sacred, but as something lived. In the final light of day, Nyla rose to the ocean's surface. The sky blushed violet. The sea mirrored it in full. She floated there, neither above nor below, her eyes open to both sky and deep. A single breath escaped her lips. To be the ocean is to hold the world without needing to touch it. No music followed. No movement. Just stillness. The camera of existence held her there for one sacred moment. Then, like mist, she vanished into the twilight. No grand finale. No mythic close. Just the truth. That peace does not announce itself. It arrives, quiet and complete. And like the tide, it always returns.